Hey everybody, today we're doing another topic video and we're talking about, again, movies that you really like but everybody else seems to hate, and why. But before we get into that, I'm going to plug my website. As always, it is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commission portraits. I also sell prints of my work. If that is something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Well, it's a historically important film depicting interracial relationships. Most critics have labeled it as corny, and it is. However, for me, it's salvaged by the terrific performances of Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn, and Sidney Poitier. The speech that Tracy gives at the end of the film always gets to me, especially knowing that he would die a few weeks after filming, and it ends with a classic Tracy line, when the hell are we going to get some dinner? It was also an early influence when I started to become a cinephile, so I'll always have a soft spot for it. Very interesting. I sort of have a similar experience as you do, but it doesn't necessarily carry over into my adult life in terms of, like I really love it now. But I did have a similar experience in that I was very young when I was introduced to it. My dad was a big Sidney Poitier fan, so I did see a lot of his movies when I was a little kid. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner was one of them. But I do have to agree with you. I don't think the film is very good. I do think that it is really corny. It's incredibly preachy to me, but yes, it's salvaged by the performances. It's salvaged by, the fact that it is an ensemble. It could have been a play. But they got such incredible actors for it. And yes, Katharine Hepburn, Spencer Tracy, seeing them together again, the chemistry is just extraordinary. It's like they've known each other in every possible lifetime that they've been reincarnated. She just gets Spencer Tracy. And yeah, there is something very devastating to knowing that, he was going to die very soon. And it is just a classic Spencer Tracy type of performance. He was effortless, yet poetic. And gosh, like Sidney Poitier, he has such an intensity in the eyes and a power, but so elegant and pulled back at the same time. All of those qualities are amazing. But, if I'm talking about the film itself, I don't care for it. It's more the actors that I think are elevating the material. That is just my personal opinion. But I totally get where you're coming from, that it's a movie that holds a special place in your heart. Antichrist, 2009. It's a masterpiece on human nature through the most pessimistic lenses possible, and a deconstruction of the myth of the female as the witch or the hysteric. Von Trier does a great job at exploring the universe he creates, and the movie delivers some of the best acting I've seen in this century. Unfortunately, most people hate it because of its gore and sexual violence or the misogyny that they see, but I find it to be a surface level look at the film. Yeah, of course, all of that is very surface level. If you say it's misogynistic, it's like, good Lord, you're totally missing so much of the point. Like, the concept of misogyny in it is a very important one, because I actually do think that the main actress represses herself. Like, it's something that she's doing by choice. And, obviously Antichrist is very much inspired by a movie like Possession. I personally prefer Possession a lot more. I think that Antichrist is a bit of a messy experience, and a lot of the metaphors in it as well are a little bit messy. Tonally, it's a little bit confusing to me, and I think especially the ending, I'm not quite sure sometimes if Von Trier really knows what he's saying fully. But then again, he's given us a lot to tackle with the film. But yes, I mean, it is a very taboo film. All of Lars von Trier films are taboo. They're meant to be. He's very much somebody who's trying to provoke you, which can be annoying at times. The masochism in which he exhibits, and, obviously we see it on film, sometimes that can be a little bit annoying. But at the same time, there is a power to it. Sometimes it does allow you to see a sense of clarity. And I do think Antichrist is one of those films that it's about so many different things. Yes, it's about men and women. It's about the way that men perceive women. It's about the way women perceive themselves, and also the dangers of that being projected on the man. I think it's a very complex dynamic. And, yeah, it's about relationships. It's about so many different things. And yeah, a very, very ambitious project, one that you really are never quite sure where it's going to go. But I do recommend it for people that, obviously, like, if you're not into those taboo subjects, don't watch it. But, if you're somebody that really likes that kind of stuff, this is worth your time. It's just a lot of people, I think, just get put off because, there is a certain scene at the end of this film that is very infamous. And yes, I totally understand. Again, like, the whole point is for this to be It's meant to provoke you. So it's like whether or not you're willing to receive it. Those who have seen the film know exactly what I'm talking about. You can't not, I feel like. But if you get past the initial like, oh my God, that's shocking. That's I can't look at that. But it's like, yes, but once you get past that, you start really thinking about, why it's there, what purpose it serves. But yeah, I don't know if it's a movie that everybody hates, but it is definitely a movie that people struggle with. I think more the mainstream hates it. And I think more the people that are like the cinephiles find maybe a little bit more to admire in it. Spring Breakers, man, what a wild movie. Extremely interesting concept. Has absolutely gorgeous cinematography, incredible performances, especially from Franco, who is possibly the scariest man that has ever been on the big screen. And it's such a lurid, disgusting experience that makes you feel physically ill after finishing it. And may I just say that no other movie ends with Lights by Ellie Goulding. I love Spring Breakers. And yeah, I reviewed that not that long ago. And, I did get some comments where people just, I hate this movie. Like, people seem to have like an active anger for it because they see it as pretentious or, like it's so pointless or whatever. And I think I like it because it's not pretentious. I don't see it as pretentious. I think it would have been pretentious if Harmony Korine had like these very lofty goals of like metaphors, all this deep stuff, a reflection of society. And he felt like he was saying something really important. But I don't think that that's his idea or his philosophy at all. I really think that he just likes to throw things at the wall and see if it sticks by like putting yourself through very interesting experiences, observing all kinds of behavior, particularly in very extreme situations, which can be, controversial, can be disgusting, it can be euphoric. Often it's a combination of all of those things. But it feels very much like, being part of a world, exploring it, and then just kind of chipping away, taking little pieces here. I want to add this in my movie. Ooh, that's interesting. I want to add it. And then it becomes a very interesting experience. As you say here, it's a lurid, disgusting experience. It does, and I said this in my review, it feels like you've done way too many drugs and you pass out and there's like a music video on the TV and you almost feel like you're merging with it in some weird psychedelic way. So it really does feel kind of like a subconscious experience of what it's like to be in this mindset of like the spring break, obsessed with excess, drugs, all of these things. But it does have a real poetry to it. It's really beautiful. Korine, I love his philosophy about like when he sees a movie, half the time he doesn't remember the plot. He remembers moments, he remembers scenes here and there. And that's the kind of experience he's trying to create for us. I mean, honestly, I think it's a lot more simple than people think it is. But yeah, I mean, that's just not my personal feeling about it. I love it, as you do. It seems that Darren Aronofsky's film Mother has very few fans. I am one of those fans, partly because I find the film itself fascinating, but also because I took sadistic pleasure in imagining what might be going through the minds of other moviegoers who were baffled by it. Yeah, that's a very interesting film just because the reaction is very strange. At the time, I really wasn't sure what was going to happen. I could see it kind of becoming a cult classic. I could see it being, quite popular and shocking at the time. It didn't really connect for whatever reason. Just initially, I think over time, it's kind of mixed. I hear people for sure talking about like, man, nobody talks about Mother. I really like that film. I see maybe a little bit more of that now for sure, but I don't know if I would call it a cult classic quite yet. I don't know if it's quite reached that status. I have only seen it one time. I reviewed it at the time. I didn't care for it. I'm not a big Darren Aronofsky fan, as many people know. Though I think there are aspects of that film that are fascinating, absolutely fascinating, and some of the more interesting things that Darren Aronofsky has ever experimented with as a writer. I think the main one is kind of the meta-examination of himself and, the idea of the director and the muse. The way that that's handled in the opening of the film and especially at the very end, the very last shot, to me is so fantastic. It gave me chills. And I think it says to me that Darren Aronofsky is very aware of things, a lot more aware of things than I might have initially thought. I do actually like the fact that the film has humor in it. I mean, I think that Darren Aronofsky movies are very funny. And I think that he's leaning more into that humor here because it does feel, kind of like borderline farce for sure. For me, though, I just feel like he's always wanting to really fly off the handle with his movies. It's like build until it just goes absolutely batshit insane. And I never feel like his movies quite go batshit enough for me. They're never quite visceral enough. It's never quite chaotic enough. A lot of kind of like the visual metaphors he's using here, to me, they feel very cookie cutter. I had the same complaints about Black Swan, a movie that I've started to like more that I'm older. But I do have a lot of complaints. It does feel kind of art house 101 in terms of the aesthetic and in terms of, some of the ideas. But yeah, I do think that with time, I think about that movie, though I didn't care for it at the time, maybe I'd like it again. Maybe if I saw it again, I might like it. But definitely the criticisms I have still stick out in my mind, but also the things that I find interesting about it really stick out in my mind. I think that's a really good thing when it comes to a movie. Movies like that stick out in the mind, especially of all kinds of people, those go on to become typically cult classics. And there are many cult classics from Aronofsky. So yeah, I can see this one becoming that. And there are many Aronofsky cult classics, I think, at this point. So It Comes at Night, 2017. It's unfortunate that a movie like this that has nuance was overlooked. If a horror flick doesn't jump scare the bejesus out of you, the masses usually hate it. Yes, I think, honestly, and I'm not the only one to have said this, but I think that the reason It Comes at Night did not do so well at the time is maybe because of the way it was marketed. It was marketed as a movie that was going to have like monsters, and it was going to be like more of a typical experience. And then when you see it, that's not what you get. Obviously, if you know the director and the previous work that he had done, it's like you know what you're going to expect. But I don't think most people are thinking that. Most people just see horror movie. That looks fun. Let's go watch it. And the movie turned out to be a lot more quiet and a lot more devastating. And, it is really about the realities of loss in a situation like that. To me, it felt much more realistic. To me, it was a lot more about, the things that we create in our head, especially when situations are dire and survival is paramount. And I don't know, I thought all of that was handled really beautifully. And, it's not maybe the greatest film I've ever seen, but I really love the director, and he's shown major promise to me. And there is something very heavenly, Terrence Malick-like about his style, which, if you look into his background, you understand a little bit of why that is. But yeah, I agree with you. It's a really good movie. I would like to see it, gain a little bit more love over time for sure, but I'm not quite seeing it. But I'm really glad to see you bringing it up. But yeah, so those are just a few. And this is one of my favorite topics to do. I'm going to do a reverse of it very soon. So stay tuned for that one. But that is the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Over here, you will see my patrons. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.